let me just back up. To understand this sheep business, we need to understand that Jesus was using imagery they would have understood. Okay? That's the first thing. We have a hard time because we live in this world that we have technology everywhere. If you didn't have technology, you wouldn't be watching this Bible Devo, whether it was a phone or tablet or computer, like I was saying. Well, part of the thing is this was imagery that Jesus used that it would have been common, everyday, understanding stuff. He was teaching them theological principles with things they understood. Now, for example, if Jesus were to be giving these illustrations today, he might talk about cars or a truck, or you don't go to the gas station and fill up your gas to blah, blah, blah. It would have been an image that everyone would have understood. Or when you go to the store, you don't pick up blah, 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 because you see my point? He used parables and he used these teachings in a way that everybody could relate to. Like, that's the writing of the theological, well, he's an author and a theologian and just an all-around wicked smart guy, is C.S. Lewis, Clive Staples Lewis. And he would use children's books, and I mean, he did other theological studies, don't get me wrong, but what he's most famous for is his children's books that they were allegory of deep spiritual topics, but set in this fictional world of Narnia. He was teaching us things of deep spiritual significance using kids' books because we could understand it. It made sense. You know, when High King Peter would rush into battle and he was noble, we could relate to that being faithful to God, right? He didn't always do that, but most of the time he had a pretty dang good heart, right? But Jesus was using common understanding stuff that everybody got. So I wanted to point this out because when he starts talking about this sheep gate, it's easy for us in the West, in the modern world, to check out. Because what do you mean sheep gate? I don't understand. Here it is. Here's a picture of one, okay? This is a sheepfold, and that's a sheep gate. When shepherds had to be in a town or someplace congregated, sometimes they would have to put their sheep in with other shepherds' sheep. It was like a holding area, just like this, okay? And whenever they needed to come and go, sheep instinctively know the voice of their shepherd, okay? When you walk around a sheep, they know you. For example, I have several sheep here, and we've actually been having lambs lately. Since I talked to you, I think we had 2 lambs born the middle of last week. Oh, like balloons. Hey, happy birthday, sheep. And then we had another pair this weekend. Oh, there's, I guess, balloons for sheep. Then I believe we're going to have another pair this week. So I think we're going to get a total of 6 baby sheep. But the thing is this, they know the sound of my voice. If I walk outside the house and I'm talking at all, even quietly, they'll hear me. And they'll start bang, bang, ba, 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 ba. They know my voice. I walk around, they'll track the pen. I mean, some are a little more skittish, but they know me and they will listen to me. Now, when we first got some that were not from our flock, they didn't want to come around at first. They were very apprehensive. And so a shepherd would have no problem calling his sheep out of a sheepfold. There could be 4 or 5 different shepherds' sheep in a sheepfold like this. He would open the gate, He'd call to them. They would recognize his voice. They would come in or go out, depending on what they needed to do. And then he could close the gate, and it wasn't any problem. So when Jesus is saying, hey, my sheep know my voice, that is an image that's hard for us to understand now, today, but not when you hung around sheep for a little bit, okay? So the point being, he's the shepherd. He's the one that takes care. Those sheep out in my fold know who I am. Most of them know that when they hear my voice, they're getting treats. I got to keep a little handful of treats, and they come around. But that is designed so that when I need them to do something, they listen to me. Now, they know that if I'm around, nothing bad's going to happen. They just know that. Even when the dogs are around, they'll get behind me and stay away from the dogs. But they know that if Brad's around, we're okay. Okay? And so Jesus is using this image that he is that good shepherd. He's the one that will go after the wolf and take it out. He's the one that will stand between the sheep and the bear. The sheep know it. They know his voice, and they know that they can trust him. This is a beautiful image. I mean, not to mention that, let's be honest. Sheep are kind of dumb for the most part. They get themselves into the craziest situations, heads locked in places, stuck in between fences, and they get themselves rolled over. And if you don't roll a sheep over quick, if they're like stuck, rolled over this way too long, they'll literally die laying on their back. Sheep can do the dumbest things, and I think it's just kind of just tasty, delicious that Jesus would say, hey, you guys are a lot like sheep, but I love you. I love you. And it is funny because my wife, Krista, for the longest time, she didn't want me to have sheep. And I don't know why. It wasn't malicious. She wasn't thinking anything bad. I think she just thought more work. I don't want to deal with more work. But for whatever reason, I just wanted to have sheep. I just thought they were cool. And I thought, what a great image, a good reminder. And I just wanted to have them. It was one of them things that we weren't going to milk them, and we haven't harvested a single one yet. We've only raised them and sold them or traded them. And so for me, it was more, I just wanted to have them. They just seemed cool, like a pet, right? Well, the more I sit and watch my sheep, the more I understand why Jesus was using sheep as a visual for us. Does that make sense? Because even though I could live fine without the sheep, I don't need the sheep, but I love the sheep. They're my sheep. I like them. I would stand between a wolf and those sheep, no doubt, no question about it. Of course, there might be some high velocity projectiles coming the way of anything that tried to do harm to my sheep. But that's for a different video, isn't it? So I think it's pretty awesome that this is the imagery that Jesus picked. Now, here's something that is super enlightening. If you go with me, if you have your Bibles, turn with me to chapter 10, all the way back down to let's start in verse 15, okay? But this is awesome foreshadowing. This is God assuring us, mostly, Gentiles, us, Gentiles. Here we go. Verse 15, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, I lay down my life for the sheep. Verse 16, and I have other sheep that are not of this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice, so there will be one flock and one shepherd. Doesn't that sound an awful lot like Jews first, then the Gentiles, like he had been talking about, that he did come for salvation for the Jews first and then the Gentiles, boy, oh boy, don't you think that is a just like dart center of the bullseye? This is Jesus saying, hey, guess what? The Gentiles, they're mine too, which is one of the big reasons why I think the Jews flipped out in Acts when the Gentiles started coming into the church and they didn't know how to react. And Paul and Peter and James and all of them were saying, okay, this is uncomfortable, but we believe that Jesus said Gentiles are coming in. All right, let's make some changes and let's do this. Well, the people that didn't want to accept that, they were the ones that were trying to kill off the people of, they called it the way, Christians, believers. They didn't want that. So they just started trying to kill people. Whereas these guys are going, no, Gentiles are coming into the fold. Jesus has said it. Prophecy has fulfilled it. There's going to be one flock under Jesus. And that is so amazing. And also, verse 17, I lay down my life that I may take it up again. There's a really big, important point in verse 17 and 18, because this is theologically deep water stuff. But we're actually going to stay in the shallow end of the deep water, because here's the thing. Jesus is saying, I lay down my life that I may take it up again. And also in verse 18, I lay it down of my own accord. Here's the thing. He is going willingly to the cross. He is not being forced there by Rome. He's not being forced there by the Jews. He's choosing to go to the cross. He doesn't have to go to the cross. He could erase us with one thought. If Jesus didn't love us, if he didn't love his sheep, if he was not willing to lay his life down, he wouldn't have to. We wouldn't even know it. We would just not exist. If he just decided, you know what, this is too much of a hassle, boom, gone. But he loves us. But this point in verse 17 and 18, he's saying, I'm in charge of this. I'm not going because anybody's forcing me. I'm going of my own will. I am going to pay the sins you couldn't pay because I love you. That's a big deal, and it's a big difference. Because if you think of it like somehow Rome won and the Jews manipulated Rome to kill Jesus, if you think that way, then you're saying Jesus is powerless against his own creation. That's ultimately, there's where you end up. That somehow the God of gods that created everything, the one true living God, he couldn't stop his own creation from killing him. That's one way if you go that route. Or if you go this route, it's very clear that he didn't have to. He chose to. He was always in charge. Thumbs up. Look at that. Thumbs up, guys. He chose to. And that makes a huge difference when you think about all the junk that you've done and I've done. All the sins and all the stupid things. Yet he chose to go. He didn't have to go. He loves you enough where he would lay down his life for his flock. Isn't that amazing? Let me tell you what, folks. It's hard to fathom how much love that really is. Wow. So this morning, focusing in on verse 17 and 18, when you think about he chose me, he chose Judy and John, He loves Pepper Leah and Moni, Delaney B and Krista and Caleb and Grace and Ruth and Hope. He chose to go to the cross for you. He wasn't forced, because we couldn't do it on our own. And boy, oh boy, doesn't that just change your perspective on everything? It fills me with such a sense of gratefulness and thankfulness, and it makes me want to share what he's done. And that's part of what we need to do as believers. Matthew chapter 28. If you don't know what I'm talking about, read it. Matthew chapter 28. What did Jesus command us to do as believers? Once we've received this for us, if you are in that sheep flock, and also I have other sheep that are not of this fold, I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice, so there will be one flock and one shepherd. If you are in that group, if you're in that flock, if you have gratefully received what Christ has done for you, ask for forgiveness, you have a relationship with Christ, if you're in that flock, then guess what? We need to be doing what it says in Matthew chapter 28. 3 big things. Go make disciples, baptize them, and teach them to do the same thing. Teach them in doctrine, right? Ladies and gentlemen, this is our marching orders right here. This is it. And I don't know about you, but I'm encouraged. I'm blessed. I've never been so happy to be called a sheep. Because I know that sheep are not the brightest, but you know what? I want to be in that flock. And I hope you do too. I really do. So, any comments this morning as we're going in the live stream? I'm going to chat about comments here in a sec. So if you check out, have a blessed day, everybody. Hope to see you back.